Back in late 2020, when everything was uncertain and the streets were quieter than usual, I started driving for a rideshare company to make ends meet. My old job in retail had vanished practically overnight, and this was the fastest way I knew to keep some cash coming in. I mostly worked late nights, fewer drivers, better pay. You get your fair share of weirdos doing that shift. Of course, people too drunk to walk straight, couples fighting in the back seat, once even a guy who cried quietly the whole ride. But nothing I'd seen or heard came close to what happened that one night. It was a Friday. Just after midnight, I had dropped someone off at a small hotel on the edge of town, and before I could even take a sip of water, my phone pinged with a new ride request. Pickup was listed as a place I knew well, a bowling alley at a nearly dead strip mall, about 6 minutes from where I was. The name on the ride said, Nolan, no profile pic. Just a name. When I arrived, the lot was empty, except for some dim yellow lights flickering above. The bowling alley was closed. Everything was still, but there was a man standing under one of the lights, hands in his pockets, wearing a dark gray hoodie and jeans. He wasn't looking around, just staring down at the ground, like he'd been waiting there a long time. I pulled up next to him and rolled the window down. "You Nolan?" I asked. He didn't nod right away, just slowly raised his head, looked at me, and said, "Yeah." He got in the back seat, didn't slam the door, didn't sigh, didn't fidget, just sat perfectly still, directly behind me. I asked if the destination in the app was correct. It was a street I'd never heard of, about 20 minutes into a wooded residential area outside of town. He said, "Yeah," again, same flat tone. He didn't talk after that. Not once. I tried some small talk a few minutes in, asked if he had a good night, where he was headed. Nothing, not even a grunt. I peeked at him in the rearview mirror. He wasn't looking out the window or at his phone, just staring directly ahead at the back of my head. Around 15 minutes into the ride, we started hitting roads I didn't even know existed. Narrow 2-lane stretches with no lights and dense trees on both sides. The air felt thicker out there, and my gut was starting to twist in a way I've learned not to ignore. Then he leaned forward, close enough for me to feel his breath on my neck, and said, "Turn in here." There was a gravel driveway just ahead, leading to a house barely visible through the trees. No lights, no car, nothing to suggest anyone actually lived there. "You live here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. He said, "Just pull in," the way he said it. It wasn't a request. I pulled into the driveway, stopping a few feet from the front of the house. My headlights lit up peeling paint, boarded windows, and a sagging porch that looked ready to collapse. He didn't get out. "You good?" I asked, looking at him through the mirror. He stared at the front of the house, then said, "Wait here." He opened the door and stepped out, but instead of heading to the front entrance, he walked around the side of the building and disappeared into the shadows. I waited maybe 2 minutes. Every instinct in me said leave, but I was trying to be rational. Maybe he lived in a basement unit or something. Maybe this was his weird Airbnb. But the silence was too thick. The place felt wrong. I decided to end the trip manually and get out of there. As I was shifting into reverse, I saw him. He was walking back toward the car quickly. His hood was down now, and something about his expression made me grip the steering wheel tighter. He looked eager, like he was coming back from something unfinished. I unlocked the doors because I figured locking him out might make things worse. But I kept my hand near the gear shift. He got in. "Take me back to the alley," he said. I hesitated. "You need to enter it in the app." He didn't say anything, just stared at me. I said it again. Nothing. Then he whispered, "You don't want this in the app." I swallowed and started driving. The silence this time wasn't awkward. It was suffocating. He was breathing heavier now, and every time I glanced back, he was still staring at the back of my head. Halfway back, I asked him if he was okay. He answered with, "Do you ever think about how you'll die?" That question made my stomach flip. I gave a nervous chuckle and said, "Not really." He didn't laugh. When we got back to the same spot, I picked him up. I stopped the car. He didn't get out right away. Then he leaned forward again and whispered, "You weren't supposed to take that ride tonight." I didn't respond. Then he got out, slowly shut the door, and vanished behind the building. The same way he came. I sat there for a long time, just trying to get my breathing back under control. When I finally drove home, I checked the trip details, but the name was gone. The record was blank. No Nolan. No pickup or drop-off points. Not even a time stamp. It was like the whole ride had been erased. I contacted support. They said if a trip is canceled during the ride, sometimes it bugs out and vanishes from the log. But that didn't explain everything. He was there. He rode in my car. He spoke to me. And I still don't know what he meant when he said I wasn't supposed to take that ride. I wonder if he picked someone else the night after, or the night after. I still drive weekends sometimes, but I never accept rides without profile pictures anymore. And I always listen to my gut, because maybe next time he won't change his mind. I've been driving for Uber full-time since early 2021. I live in a city that attracts a decent amount of tourists, especially during the summer. So I usually work nights, less traffic, better tips, and more interesting rides. That night was no different, or at least, that's what I thought. It was around 1:30 a.m. On a Saturday, when I got a ping, the name said Chris. The pickup location was a side alley near the back of an old strip mall, not the usual spot for late-night pickups. I figured the GPS pin was just a little off. That happens sometimes. When I arrived, I saw a guy standing on the corner, head down, hoodie up, staring at his phone. I rolled down the window and said, "Chris?" He gave a small nod and got into the back seat without a word. He didn't smell like alcohol. He wasn't slurring. But he also didn't say hello. Didn't respond when I asked how his night was going. Just silence. Some people just aren't talkers, so I shrugged it off. The drop-off was 25 minutes away in a quiet residential suburb. As I started driving, I noticed Chris was holding his phone oddly, not scrolling, not texting, just sitting in his lap with the flashlight turned on, angled slightly forward toward my seat. I laughed a little, trying to break the tension, and asked, "Everything good back there?" He mumbled, "Yeah," and turned the flashlight off. From that point, we drove in complete silence. No music, no conversation, just the occasional hum of the tires over the road, and this weird, thick stillness in the car. I can't explain it, but I felt like something was building. Something was off about this ride. When we reached the house, or what the GPS said was the house, I noticed it was completely dark. No porch light, no signs of anyone being awake inside, no movement. I slowed to a stop and asked, "Is this the place?" Chris didn't respond. I turned around, looked at him, and repeated myself, "Hey, is this it?" He didn't even look at me. He stared through the window, like he wasn't even present. After a moment, he finally gave a small nod. I said, "All right, take care," and parked the car. But he didn't get out. He just sat there, hands on his knees, staring blankly. "Are you okay?" I asked. He didn't reply then. Slowly, he reached for the door handle, opened it, and stepped outside, but didn't shut the door. He stood there, facing the house like he was waiting for something. 30 seconds passed, then a minute, just as I was about to say something again. He turned back to me and said, in a completely flat voice, "I need to go back." "Back where?" I asked, confused. "Back to where you picked me up." I told him I couldn't just reverse a trip. He'd need to request a new ride. That's when he looked me directly in the eyes, and I mean right into me, and said, "I can't. They're not gone yet." I blinked. "Who's not gone?" He didn't answer. His breathing started to get heavier. I was done. I told him again he needed to use the app. After a few seconds of staring, he finally stepped back and closed the door. I watched him walk slowly toward the house. No lights turned on. No one came out to greet him. It was bizarre. I pulled away, ended the trip, and decided to stop by a nearby gas station to use the restroom and grab a bottle of water. I parked on the side of the building, went inside, and came back out maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, and that's when my blood ran cold. Chris was back in the back seat of my car, same hoodie, same blank expression, just sitting there like he'd never left. I know I locked the doors when I left the car, but somehow he was inside. "How did you get back in?" I asked, frozen. He didn't answer my question. Instead, he whispered, "Take me back." I reached for my phone and told him I was calling the police. That's when he leaned forward, just far enough that I could hear his breath on my neck, and said, "They're still in the house." I paused, phone in hand. Something about the way he said it. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a warning, like he wasn't even talking to me. More like he was reliving something. I don't know what possessed me to go along with it, but I didn't call the cops. Instead, I asked, "Whose house is that?" He replied, My parents. You live there? Not anymore. That chilled me more than anything else he'd said. Still, for some reason, I started driving. Back toward the pickup spot, every part of my brain was screaming that this was a terrible idea, that I should have gotten out of the car, called someone, done anything but keep driving. But I didn't. As we got closer, Chris started whispering. They won't leave, I tried, but they won't leave. He rocked slightly in his seat, like he was stuck in a loop. When we pulled up to the house again, it was still dark, still lifeless. He got out without a word and walked up to the porch. He didn't knock, didn't go inside, just stood there. I didn't wait this time. I turned the corner, locked every door, and parked under a streetlight a few blocks away. I sat in the car for at least 10 minutes, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I debated calling the cops, but what would I say? That a guy creeped me out twice? Technically, no crime had been committed. He hadn't hurt me. He hadn't stolen anything. And yet I felt violated. The next day, I reported it to Uber. I never heard anything back. To this day, I wonder if that house was really his, if his parents really lived or died there, or if they were ever real to begin with. But the worst part? Some nights, when I pull up to a quiet, dark house, I catch myself checking the rearview mirror, just to make sure no one's already back there. I've always thought of myself as careful, cautious, even 18 years old. Living alone in a small apartment on the edge of town, I kept my circle small and my doors locked. The building was quiet, a little too quiet sometimes. My only real company was Milo, my 5-pound ball of fur, who thought he was a guard dog. He barked at everything, shadows, creaks, the sound of the mail slot. I always joked that, if anything really happened, at least I'd get a loud warning. But no joke prepared me for what happened. That Friday night, it had been a long day. I'd been cleaning since the late afternoon, getting my place spotless. For my boyfriend's visit the next day, we were long distance, so weekends together were special, and I wanted everything to be perfect. By the time I was done scrubbing the kitchen, folding laundry, and vacuuming every corner, my stomach was growling loud enough that Milo perked up. I looked around my perfectly clean apartment and sighed. The last thing I wanted to do was cook and mess it up. So I grabbed my phone and opened the Uber Eats app. I knew it would take a while. I was 8 miles outside of town, and deliveries here were slow. Still, I scrolled, picked something quick, and placed the order. The app said my driver was on the way in a white Honda Fit Sport. I always used contactless delivery. Being a young woman living alone, it just felt safer. Usually, I'd get the notification, open my door, and grab my food without ever seeing the driver. When my phone buzzed with, "Your order has been delivered," I jumped up, practically salivating. But when I opened the door, nothing, no bag. I frowned. Maybe he left it at the wrong door? I poked my head out into the hallway, scanning the other apartments. Nothing. I was just about to message him when there was a knock. My neighbor stood there, holding my order. "Hey," he said, a little out of breath. I took this from the delivery guy. He was looking through your windows." For a moment, I just stared at him, trying to process. He was what? "Yeah, I came outside and saw him walking along your window. Didn't seem right, so I told him I'd give it to you. I managed to thank him, shut the door, and lock it. I should have called someone. Should have told myself this wasn't normal, but instead, I told myself he was probably lost, confused, maybe looking for my apartment number. I ate, watched a movie, and tried to relax around midnight. I got ready for bed. Milo curled up beside me as I scrolled my phone. That's when he started growling at the back door. "Milo, I whispered, trying to calm him, but he wouldn't stop. His little body was tense, ears perked, eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. I peeked through the blinds. Nothing. Probably an animal. I told myself. I turned out the lights and pulled the blanket over me. I was just starting to drift off when it happened. Bang! A loud, hollow thud against my bedroom window. I shot upright. Milo exploded into barking, spinning in circles on the bed, his tiny frame trembling. I froze, every muscle locked, my breath caught in my throat. As I stared at the window, my heart was pounding so loud I could hear it. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, keeping my voice low. "There's someone in my backyard," I whispered. "My window doesn't lock. Please, please hurry." The operator told me to move to another room and wait. Knife in hand, I crept into the kitchen. That's when I saw it. Through the side window, across the empty field, a white Honda Fit Sport, just sitting there. The engine was off. No headlights, just waiting. My stomach turned to ice. It was him. I knew it. The police arrived quickly. 2 officers went to check the backyard, while another approached the car. When they came back, the driver wasn't in it. One officer told me there were fresh footprints in the mud under my bedroom window. "Where is he now?" I asked. They didn't answer. After the police left, my neighbor offered to let me crash at his place. I thanked him, but said no. I told myself it was over, but at 2 a.m., pounding rattled my front door. "Ma'am, it's the police." It was the same officer from earlier. She told me they'd stayed nearby, hidden, watching my apartment, and he had come back. He was walking straight toward my door when they arrested him. My hands shook as she told me. I wouldn't have to worry about him anymore. I never used Uber Eats again when I was home alone. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I was visiting my boyfriend in Washington, D.C. We decided to spend the day sightseeing the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, the Capitol, even the White House. Hours of walking left us exhausted, our legs aching, the afternoon sun pressing down. My boyfriend's friend Sarah suggested we call an Uber. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and within minutes, a gray minivan rolled up to the curb. "Uber for Sarah?" she asked through the open door. The driver nodded. We climbed in. It was silent. No greeting. No small talk. He didn't even confirm our names. The car pulled away from the curb and kept going. At first, I thought nothing of it, until Sarah tapped my arm. She held up her phone. The Uber app showed our route, and it was the opposite direction from our hotel. Then a notification popped up. Your Uber has arrived, followed by a message from the real driver asking where we were. My heart dropped. I leaned forward slightly. Hey, we changed our minds. Can you just let us out here? A driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. His eyes were unreadable. He didn't slow down, didn't speak, just kept driving. I reached into my pocket and wrapped my fingers around my pocket knife. My voice was steady, steadier than I felt. No, you're not our driver. Pull over now, or I'll use this. His gaze flicked to the blade, then back to the road, without a word. He jerked the wheel toward the curb and hit the lock switch. The moment I heard the click, we bolted. We didn't stop running until we were half a block away. Our real driver picked us up minutes later. When we told him what happened, he went pale. There's been people posing as Uber drivers around. Here, he said, tourists get in, and they're never seen again. 2 different cities, 2 different men. Same intentions now. I check every plate number, every name, every face. I keep Milo close, my knife closer, because I've learned. The hard way sometimes, the ride isn't over when you think it is.